All right. Hello, everyone. And it looks like we are live. Let's make sure that everything is functional. Everyone can see the screen. Great. Okay. Well, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Today's community session is Ditch the Pitch, Why No One Knows What You Do and How to Fix It. So first, let's start with a question. How many of you have been asked, so what do you do? And somehow made it super weird. And you know exactly what I mean, right? Someone asks a very normal question. So what do you do? And suddenly your brain starts sprinting, right? Do I tell them my title? Do I explain my methodology? Do I explain my whole business? Do I explain my story? Do I tell them about the certification, the framework, the book, the workshop, the membership, right? The thing I'm going to do what do I actually want to be known for? Maybe that's what I go with, right? And before you know it, you're 3 or more minutes into an explanation, and the other person is standing there like, oh wow, that's interesting, which is usually code for I have absolutely no idea what you just said. And the crazy thing is, most people watching this right now are not unclear about what they do. You're actually very clear, aren't you? You've spent years doing the work. You know your clients, you know your processes, you know your industry, you know your stuff. But somehow, when it's time to explain it, everything falls apart. And I think that is part because many of us were giving advice that sounds really smart, but doesn't actually work really well in real life, especially not anymore. And the classic advice is what? You need an elevator pitch, right? Write ye an elevator pitch. The perfect little 30-second pitch, one answer, one explanation, one magical sentence that somehow explains your entire business to every person in every situation. Wouldn't that be lovely? Honestly, most of us aren't riding around in elevators pitching investors, are we? We're talking to people at networking events, at workshops, at conferences, at dinner parties, and DMs, on podcasts, in referral conversations, on our strategy calls, in real life human conversations, right? And those situations require something very different. So today we are going to talk about why so many people struggle to explain what they do, why the traditional elevator pitch isn't solving the problem, and why clear beats clever every single time. And we can also talk about what to do instead so people can actually understand your work. So, first things first, we're welcome my M360 members here. They're here in the room. And for those of you joining on YouTube, welcome as well. We've got about 30 minutes together today, and then the members and I will stay for our private discussion and implementation session. So, as always, make sure you like and subscribe, check the show notes for resources, and we're going to go ahead and dive in. So, first, why is this so hard? Right? Let's start here. Because seriously, if I asked you, what do you do? Most of you would not struggle to do the actual thing. We struggle to explain the thing. And those are two very different problems. A lot of the people in your room have years of experience, right? Certifications, training, client results, real experience, right? Right here in this room, we have that everywhere. You know what you do. The problem is explaining it in a way that another human being, right? Another human immediately understands. So, what we actually end up doing right over here, when someone goes, what do you do? We go into jargon, we over explain it, or we get really clever. Right. So, one way we jargon it is we try to make it sound really impressive, right? At least to us, because we know what it means. So, we say things like, I help purpose driven entrepreneurs align their vision with scalable systems, or I facilitate transformational personal growth through holistic methodologies, or I empower women to step into their authentic power. And the other person is standing there thinking, what? Look, they don't speak our industry language, right? This is the wrong place to start. So the other thing we do, what do? We over explain it. The second thing we do is we go into all the detail. They go, what do you do? And suddenly we're giving them the entire history of Western civilization until we get to the part where we're in it, right? We start with, well, originally I was in corporate, then I got burned out and I discovered coaching and I got certified and I developed my framework and then I started my business. And 5 minutes later, we're still talking. And that poor person was just trying to make conversation over some appetizers or advertisers, right? The other thing that we do is we get clever. So there's the clever version, right? And this is the one I see all the time, like just profile after profile on LinkedIn, on websites, all of the thing, right? People become obsessed with sounding unique. I get it. We're told stand out, be different, right? So we want to be memorable, we want to be catchy. And somewhere along the way, we stopped trying to be understood. And that's a problem. Right? Because if someone understands you, they can ask another question. They actually know where to follow up. They actually know where to inquire. It might actually even be interesting to them if they understand it. If they are confused, the conversation dies and the memory of what you do, and should they ever connect with someone who is your perfect match, they will not remember, let alone even know it was your perfect match. You probably didn't get that far in the conversation, right? And this is the mistake, is that the goal is not to sound smart. The goal is not to sound unique. The goal is not to sound impressive. The goal is definitely not to explain your entire business. The goal is to help the other person understand enough to continue the conversation. That's it. That's the job. Because nobody makes a decision from a 30-second explanation anyway. All right? They don't. They decide whether or not they want to know more, right? And those, again, are very, very different things. So what happened? Where did we learn this? Why did we get to this? Where did all this come from? Why do so many smart, capable business owners keep struggling with the exact same thing? And it's because most of us were given the exact same advice, right? The elevator pitch. You know the advice. Get that short little speech, 30 seconds, maybe 60 if you're lucky. One perfectly crafted answer that explains everything that you do. And if someone asks, so what do you do? Boom, you deliver the pitch, and they're going to be amazed. They instantly understand your business. Angels sing, investors appear, and clients fall from the sky, right? Now, to be fair, the elevator pitch wasn't stupid, right? It was built for a very specific situation. Investor pitches, formal networking, business introductions, situations where you had very little time and needed to create enough interest to continue the conversation. That is a real thing. The problem is somewhere along the line, we turned it into this is how you explain your business. And again, I cannot emphasize, like the theme today is these things are not alike. They're not the same. Because think about this. The advice assumes there is one answer, one perfect explanation, one perfect sentence, one magical version that works for your aunt, a referral partner, a prospect, a networking event, a podcast interview, a client, your website, your LinkedIn profile. Like, really? I mean, come on. It is absolutely ridiculous to think that we are that two-dimensional, right? There's so many facets of what we do and how we connect with those people differently within ourselves as humans, let alone within ourselves as businesses, right? So what do we do instead? All right. So if the answer isn't create one perfect elevator pitch, what do we do? Because let's be honest, we do need to explain our business. We do need a way to answer, so what do you do? That matters, right? People need to understand us. Prospects need to understand us. Referral partners need to understand us. People can't hire what they don't understand, right? They can't refer what they can't explain. And they definitely can't buy something they don't understand. So the goal isn't forget explaining your business, right? The goal is to explain it in a way that works. So let's get into how the heck we do that. The first rule is very simple. Clear over clever every time. Clear beats clever. Because most people explain what they do using their language, not their audience's language. So they say things like, I empower women to break through limiting beliefs and reclaim their inner peace. Now listen, breaking through limiting beliefs, totally important. Inner peace, also important. But I guarantee you, there is not a woman on this earth that woke up this morning and said, oh my gosh, If I could just be empowered to break through these limiting beliefs and reclaim inner peace, if only there was someone that did exactly and specifically that. Not one. I'm sorry, not one, right? Now, helping women break through limiting beliefs and finding their inner peace may absolutely actually be what you do. And it is, and I'm sure, and I know it's incredibly valuable. But that's not why they know they're looking for you, right? They're not specifically looking for those things. They're looking to get away from never feeling heard, constantly putting themselves last, dragging themselves through every day, feeling overwhelmed, feeling resentful, never having time for themselves. That's what they know. That's what they're experiencing. That's what makes them stop and go, "Oh gosh, that is me," if I hear those things. So when you're trying to explain what you do, stop with your coaching language, stop with your methodology, stop with your framework. Start with the person who and what they are actually living through. Start with the actual results or life that you can create for them or they are seeking, right? Use simple, direct, real people words because clear beats clever every single time. So how do you do that? There's a few simple tests, right? When you explain what you do, ask yourself, can someone picture it? Can someone recognize themselves in it? Can someone repeat it to somebody else? And another one that's really helpful, would my ideal client actually say this? Because if they wouldn't say it, they probably won't recognize it. Hear that again. If they wouldn't say it, they probably won't recognize it. So let's use our example again, right? I help women reclaim their authentic power. Can someone picture that? Not really. I don't know what reclaiming their authentic power looks like specifically. Can they repeat it? Like, how can they explain it to somebody? It might be difficult. Would someone say, you know what my problem is? I need to reclaim my authentic power. Probably not. So now compare that to something like, I help women stop putting everyone else's needs ahead of their own. Can you picture that? Can you picture someone putting their needs before their own? Can you picture someone stopping to do that, right? Not doing that anymore. Can you recognize someone who needs it, someone who you know who's doing that? Could you repeat what that means to a friend? Yep. Would someone or you or a client actually say something like, I never have time for myself. Everyone needs something from me. I'm exhausted. Absolutely. Because understanding is the goal, not impressing people, not sounding sophisticated, not showing everyone how smart you are, just helping the right people recognize themselves in what you do. Okay. And the next one here, you are not your title. Another mistake people make is leading with their title. And honestly, most titles are terrible at explaining what you do. Think about it. If I say I'm a coach, did that help? Really? A business coach? A career coach? Executive coach? Life coach? Sports coach? Relationship coach? I mean, maybe a little bit. Or I'm a consultant. Consultant on what? For who? Why? What happens after working with you? Titles tell us what bucket you're in, right? They don't tell us why anyone should care. And I say this a lot to clients. I will tell them, go, look, first, especially for my coaches out there, you are not a coach. Coaching is the tool you use to help do X, to help lead people to Z, whatever that is. It is a tool, it's not who you are. And once you recognize, and it's not necessarily what you do, right? What you do is not coaching. What you do is transform people. What you do is help people get careers. What you do is help people stand on stages. What you do is help businesses thrive. Whatever those things are, that's what you do. Coaching is the tool. I can go on a soapbox of that for days, but we're not going to do that today. But this is where we need to come into. So instead of leading with your title, lead with one of three things. Okay. The people you help, the problem you solve, or the transformation you create. So instead of I'm a financial coach, you might say, I help people stop living paycheck to paycheck and finally feel in control of their money. Makes a lot more sense, right? I don't care that the other one's shorter. This tells me a lot more in very simple terms, right? Instead of I'm a career coach, I help people figure out what's next when they don't know when they know they've outgrown their current job, right? Help people figure out what's next when they know they've outgrown their current job. Or I'm a business coach. I help solopreneurs simplify how they run their businesses so they stop feeling overwhelmed all the time. Do you notice what happened there? Now we understand. Now I can picture that person. Now I can think, oh, I know someone who needs that. Or, oh, that's me. The title can come later. Understanding comes first. Okay. The other thing I want to throw out here is when you're doing this, I want you to build a library, not a pitch. This is where all that advice really got stuck, right? Because it trained us to look for an answer, a perfect answer, the one answer, the answer we'll use everywhere. But that's not how these conversations work. And what you actually need is a library, a collection of explanations, different answers for different situations. Because if your aunt asks you what to do, that's one answer, right? If a referral partner asks, that's a different answer. And if a prospect asks, that's another answer. If someone at a networking event asks, that's another answer. Same business, different conversation, different doorway into the same business. So, for example, if I'm going to ask, what do? You might answer, I help solopreneurs simplify how they run their business. Great. Now imagine I asked, who should I refer you to? Who should I refer to you? Right? Different question, different answer. And now you might see the best people to send me are solopreneurs who are overwhelmed by too many ideas and not enough clarity. Do you see the difference? Same business, different information. Or maybe someone asks, what actually happens when someone works with you? Again, different answer because they're asking a different question. Most people do not need an elevator pitch, let alone a better one. They need an answer bank, right? A pocket full of useful ways to explain their business, depending on who's asking and what they're actually trying to understand. And that is really a completely different skill than memorizing this one little speech. Let's get that library together and have a couple of ways to explain what you do at the ready for the different types of people in the different situations. Ideally, in the ways that makes it relevant to them. So what I'm going to do is we're going to give a couple of things. I'm going to give you a few formulas as we wrap up today. So let's not panic. Be like, what am I supposed to say? Right? We're going to give you some things, right? So because it's much easier to start with structure than a blank page, and it's much easier to edit a bad sentence than no sentence at all. All right. So very quickly, we're going to go through these. You can always pause later and work on them. Okay. So the first one I have here is the people formula. Okay. The I help who do this result. I help solopreneurs simplify how they run their business. I help women navigate career transitions. I help families design productive food gardens, right? Simple, clear, easy to understand. So that is the I help, who, and result. Fill that in, see how it works for you. The second one, the problem formula. I help who are struggling with problem. So I help solopreneurs who feel overwhelmed by what's the problem? Too many ideas and priorities. I help women, that's the who constantly put everyone else's needs ahead of their own. I help business owners who are working hard but still don't have a clear plan. Notice there's no mention of what I do in the solution, but people recognize themselves or somebody else who has too many ideas and priorities, right? People recognize women that constantly put everyone needs ahead of their own. People know business owners who are working hard and still don't have a clear plan. People recognize problems faster than they recognize solutions or methodologies, all right? More than likely, they're not familiar with your solution at all, but they certainly recognize their problem. This is one of the easiest ones, I think, to lead with because the problem is so incredibly recognizable. All right, number 3, the transformation formula. I help who go from current state to desired state, right? This is your transformation. So I help solopreneurs go from overwhelmed and reactive, right? That's one side, to focused and intentional. Or I help professionals go from stuck in a career that they hate to confident about their next move. Or help families go from buying most of their food to growing most of it themselves. That is a transformation. And ideally, it's a transformation they want, right? It's letting them know how you take them from one place to the other. And ideally, the other is where they want to go, right? And that's also how you filter it out. Maybe someone doesn't want to go there and you're like, oh, well, then this isn't for you. Okay. And we can get it that clear and filtered out in one sentence. And then lastly, what we have here is the referral formula. This is great when somebody is not your target market, but there is some synergy there and you can make something happen. This is really gold. Referral partners do not need your life story. They don't necessarily care about your life story. I mean, maybe they do. I have great referral partners that are absolute friends. But what they need to know is who to send, right? And I need you to hear this because referrals are not just about you. Referrals are about the person as well. And I will tell you firsthand, I love being the hero when somebody is looking for something and I know just the right person to send them to. I love it. Let people be heroes for you. Okay. Referrals are a win-win situation. Win-win-win, I'm going to say, because the referrer wins, right? The referee wins, and the person who's being referred, I don't know what they would call. Maybe they're the referee. What are we called then? They all win. We all win. That's the point. Maybe someone can tell me in the comments what I would call all three of us. All right. So this we want to work on by saying the best people to send me are, and we fill in the who are dealing with, and we fill in the situation. Right? The best people to send me are solopreneurs who feel scattered and need a simpler way to run their business. The best people to send me are women who know something needs to change, but aren't sure what that change is. The best people to send me are families who want to grow food, but don't know where to start. Do you see how that works? How clear that really is? That's the power of simplicity. I'm telling you, it takes um, anyone can make something complicated. It takes a genius to simplify it. It really, really does, right? So, what is it that we're saying today? Ultimately, stop trying to create the perfect elevator pitch. In fact, don't even try to create it all unless you're really in that investor space. Then that's something else to talk about. But for the 95% of solopreneurs who are not working in that way, it's not helping, right? So stop trying to find that one magical answer. Stop trying to explain your entire business in a single sentence, and instead be clear, right? Lead with people, problems, and outcomes. Build a library of explanations. And remember, the goal is not to explain everything. The goal is to help the other person understand enough to ask the next question, that they even want to ask the next question, right? Because that's how real conversations work, right? It's a back and forth. And real conversations are where opportunities actually begin. Right. So, with that said, my members, M360, stay in the room, stay right where you are. We're going to spend some time building your explanation library and testing a few of the different versions of these formulas together. And then we'll look at where we might be getting too broad and change the language and all that fun stuff. So, YouTube audience, thank you for joining us in today's session. If you found this helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and be notified when our next M3 session live is going up. Check the show notes for resources, links, and ways to connect with us. And I will see you next time. All right. Bye.